Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another Three Blokes, a Ball and Bod Group show. Tonight it is the Keego and Big Joe show. Now you're looking into the studio here, and you've seen people's names. You've seen Chief Bloke BJS, you've seen some bloke called Richard Missler, you've seen Dave Barley, you've seen Chad Thompson, but no Keego. Wherefore art thou Keego? We ask ourselves. Well, he'll be with us shortly. He's currently on his Keego Laughs, a virtual comedy gig. Yes, amongst other things, you didn't realise, some of you, that Keego is actually a stand-up comedian as well. So welcome to tonight's show. We'll have Keego in as soon as he comes in. So we'll have the lads straight in the studio to begin with, and we'll get them to tell them a little bit about themselves. This is part 3 of the Keego and Joe show's global trot round, looking at grassroots and community rugby around the globe. And part 3 tonight, we are looking at the fantastic team that is, or union, I should say, team, and it's a union, and it's a, it's just everything, isn't it, of Gibraltar Rugby. So I welcome tonight the chairman of Gibraltar Rugby Union, Chad Thompson, the national team head coach, Dave Barley, and our old friend, Richie Mifsud. Gentlemen, good evening, and welcome back to the show.
Good evening, Joe.
Good evening.
Are we all well, guys?
Yeah.
Are we all well? Have we? Oh, I tell you, to try and make me feel like, my 13 degrees of heat here was a little bit like Gibraltar. A glass of slurp, as you do, just to make me feel like I'm on a holiday or something with you all. In all seriousness, you're welcome to the show. The lads are going to tell us a little bit about Gibraltar Rugby tonight, and we're going to have a look at a bit of the history and origin and how it's structured and all the way through and where they're at and their aspirations to hit the highest level, which one day will happen. You'll see on the post tonight that we have put up there for Visit Gibraltar. Click into that and have a look and take the virtual tour. I took the virtual tour around today. There's another reason why I want to come and visit Gibraltar, not only just to be the virtual in the stadium, but that's very, very good. There's so much going on there. But have a look at Visit Gibraltar, and after COVID, put it as your #1 destination to go for a holiday. Very friendly people, and they look after you. And there's another link there to Think Gibraltar. All of the reasons why you should consider putting your business in Gibraltar or investing in business or time Gibraltar. There's so many things going on there that even I didn't know. So have a look at both of those. Visit Gibraltar and Think Gibraltar as well, and support local and the development of businesses and of the country itself. There we go. Cool. So let's start with Chad Thompson. Chad, tell us a little bit about yourself and your role within Gibraltar Rugby.
Yeah. Okay, Joe. Firstly, thank you very much for having us this evening on your show. I'm actually the general secretary, so my role's more to sort of manage and run the day-to-day operations of the union, reporting into the officers. We have a president, vice president, and treasurer. So the day-to-day admin operations of the union sort of falls within what I do. I'm a volunteer within the union. We've got some fantastic volunteers on board, and we wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for the long hours and the commitment of the team across the board. And so, yeah, we are making great strides in the small nations rugby world at the moment, and our plan is to continue on that route and to continue growing and developing the game of rugby in Gibraltar.
Yeah, excellent, mate. Good. It's been interesting for me since I met Rich a couple of years ago, following the journey through, and almost feeling like I'm aspiring with you to one day where you're going to be. And I really enjoyed our chat this afternoon and getting more background onto where you are. And I think post-COVID, especially, I think there's a change in time in the world, that local and global, and I think it's genuinely, it's not if, I think it's when we'll be able to hit into that. We'll touch more on that a little bit later. But thanks for that introduction. Dave Barley, Dylan's just remind everybody, not the first time you've been on, my friend, just remind us about your role within Gibraltar Rugby and why you're together.
Mate, it's great to be back. So yeah, basically my main role is the technical director, and then the head coach as well of the national team. So the technical director bit is basically mainly working with the schools, so trying to sort of put Gibraltar Rugby in all the schools from the age of reception right the way through to sixth form. So we're in majority of the schools. In sort of last year was in 20 to 25 hours a week in schools, which is fantastic. Then it's also supporting coaches, volunteers, that sort of thing. Supporting the clubs, the women's and girls game is massively growing over here as well. So that's kind of, there's a whole host of things that I do. That basically, where Chad looks after the off-field side of things, I look after basically everything that's on field. So there's lots of good things coming up, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But then also the national team stuff as well. So prepping those guys for games, checking in with them regularly, making sure that they're playing in the UK or wherever they're based, making sure the guys are training hard here. So yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah, good man. Excellent. Welcome back as ever. And finally, last but not least, one of the originals almost from the Three Blokes of Ball family, Rich Missod. Richard, how are you? Tell us a little bit tell those new viewers who haven't had the pleasure, mate, all about yourself.
Very well, Joe. Thank you very much. Enjoying the ride because, as you know, I retired last year and offered my voluntary services to the union, which they've kindly taken me up on. I just fit in where I can and put my shoulder to the wheel. But, these two guys have embarked on an understatement. They are both massively important to the union. They have undersold themselves, or both of them have, because quite honestly, without fear of contradiction, without them, the union would pretty much not move forward at the rate and with the aspiration and with the ambition that it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was, it really, obviously I sort of chatted online with Chad previously, but today was the first time we sort of, met and had a chat and really put context in today before the show started, put context to where Gibraltar is. So I think to start us off, Chad, you're going to sort of tell us a little bit about the union and how it's structured and how rugby is, to set the scene for it, because it's obviously going out around the globe tonight and people are watching.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
So it's setting the scene for what is Gibraltar Rugby, how is it structured, your teams, your national team, your leagues and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, sure. No, I'll be glad to. First off, we're an amateur union. All our players are amateur. We have a Gibraltar Rugby Championship and we have 4 clubs competing in that championship. That's our sort of flagship event internally in Gibraltar that we hope the juniors aspire to as they come into the adult game. And then the club game really is sort of your bread and butter rugby in Gibraltar, where from there you can then get selected for your national team, your select HPU, and really it's what we're trying to achieve as a union is the pathway for players to reach their potential and allow them to compete at the highest level they can possibly compete at, and to give them that out in sport. And as I said, we've still got a very amateur ethos in the way rugby's played down here, but obviously with what we'd like to think of a professional setup supporting that game.
Mm. And how many sort of everything is amateur from the bottom up to the top and from the top down to the bottom, and yet we're going to sort of cover this more during the show, but just remind again, how many teams are in the league and what's the sort of
so we've got four clubs in the league, and then underneath that we have sort of 10, 12 sort of corporate touch teams. We've got a ladies section with 2 clubs this season. Then we've got a vet section, and they sort of got a makeup of 1 or 2 of the clubs that feed into a Gibraltar Select, and they play a lot of the visiting vets teams that come in and also join in with the e-golf tour. And then we got the 3 senior schools that all have rugby on the curriculum now, thanks to Dave Barney's hard work in the schools. And really with it starts at the age of 2 on a Saturday morning with rugby tots. So, we've got from 2 till 65, I think, playing rugby in Gib. both across both male and female. So yeah.
Brilliant, absolutely superb. And so the 4 clubs, where do your players come from? Are they all sort of homegrown based there, or you have people who sort of travelling from Spain across the border, or is it all local?
It's predominantly Gibraltar based, and we have a number of entertainment industries in Gibraltar that like gaming and online gaming, etc., where they have a number of staff that commute in from Spain to work. Some of them feature in our league as well. So we've got a broad mix. It's really sort of the UK expat that are domiciled in Gibraltar, Gibraltarians, military, MOD, and we have nationalities from everywhere that now currently reside in Gibraltar. So it's a great mix.
Yeah, superb. Dave, for you working from the schools, how do you structure it from that sort of grassroots and community bit through? You know, what's the process that you have put in place since you've been there over the last few years to be able to sort of develop that through?
I think the biggest thing is trying to create sort of links from school into clubs. So what we want to try and do is extract players from school to club, and one of the biggest things that we try to do is create tournaments and offer events for kids to come down and at least try rugby. You know, there's no pressure for these kids to play. So for example, going back a few months ago before COVID happened, we had a really successful and it was a thing that I took from the RFU, which was just a pitch of a play event. It was totally relaxed, really fun, and it was just an event that the schools all turned up at, and they played, and you know, we extracted about 20 girls into our program, into our rugby program. So, you know, those sorts of things are really, really key for us. It's having visibility in school as Gibraltar Rugby, but also utilising tournaments, national team games where we can then host festivals, schools events, that sort of thing as well, to sort of drive the interest. But the biggest thing for us is having that visibility in schools, and you think having 20 to 25 hours a week in schools is a lot of rugby that's being delivered around the schools. And it's even got to the point now where we don't even actually hit the first schools, so the first schools being reception. So for us, you know, we're covering that side of things next year to expand it even more.
Brilliant. That's really fab. As if by magic, the man himself, the beast of Bray, the Wicklow warrior, the stand-up comedian, the raconteur, the man that can't be known by his real name, but he is yeah, sorry, he is late. The man whose bobblehead, but just show us that bobblehead again, because I have to say this bobblehead has more personality, and he told me that himself. Oh, Keego, welcome to the show, the legendary Keego. We hope that the gig went well.
Wow, I know I usually cut it tight, but I think I've broken the record for latest start time in our illustrious career, Joe. Apologies to everyone for being late. No disrespect intended. I will smack my own bottom after the show on another channel to make up for it.
As what a lot of the viewers don't know is that Keego, like myself and Richard, are all Leinster and Ireland fans, and doesn't take away from his first love of Gib, obviously, but that's how we all make. Keego, you're welcome to the show, mate. I hope your comedy gig went well. We've just been covering with Chad. If you just joined us to the show, like Keego, you're welcome. This is the Keego and Big Joe Show, another episode of Grassroots and Community Rugby around the globe. And I've added in around the globe tonight because you know why? Because we've done Keego's old club at Sea Point, which was part one and just out on the outskirts of Dublin. Part two, we did London Irish Amateur Rugby Football Club. A lot of people didn't know there was a London Irish Amateur Club. We're doing Gibraltar tonight, obviously, with the three guys. We've got Chad Thompson, who's the chairman of the union, Dave Barley, who's a returning panelist again, who was the national team's head coach and technical director and schools liaison officer, and a whole pile of other things, and Richie Mifsud, who we all know, one of the original panelists from Three Blokes. recently retired as the Deputy Commissioner of Police for Gibraltar, rugby-loving man that he is. And the reason why we're doing this as Grassroots and Community around the globe is because we can and we want to go to all of these places. So little does Chad know that these places are being handpicked for the Keego Big Joes show at some point in the future. So you're all welcome to the show. Who have we got on before we attend briefly to Richard Mifsud? Dave Topping, one of our White Walkers from Ulster, is on. David, good evening to you. Joe Lyons, Joe, thanks for your support, mate. Just made it across the runway to grab the show. See, that would have meant
Joe, I can't believe you're late. I can't believe you're late, Joe. That's terrible. Terrible, Joe. Terrible.
That wouldn't have meant absolutely nothing to me from a Gibraltar point of view had I not seen the excellent Brits on Holiday or whatever it was, Richard Hits. The program I came across about a year ago, showing it's a few years old now, I think, the Gibraltar in its best light, I think it is fair to say, and how the runway closes and stuff like that. But it's really good. So you're all welcome. We've just been talking with Chad and Dave about the background sort of and how the structure and everything is done in Gibraltar. Rich, from your perspective, as a long-standing fan and support, what do you get the most from Gibraltar and rugby? Because you're hitting that bit from the bottom to the national team level.
Well, as a rugby fan and as a Gibraltarian, to be able to stand in the stands or sit in the stands and watch my national team play is awesome. To watch them play away, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in Portugal, because we couldn't play at home just yet because the stadium wasn't ready, and beat Sweden, who are a pretty top-notch side. But to watch them play at home is just unbelievable. It's incredibly exciting for rugby. It's incredibly exciting for Gibraltar. I think that I know that the stadium has created a paradigm shift, because it now enables us to project even further. So it enables and creates the situation where teams can be invited over, where before we didn't have a home. Now we have a home. And it's a pretty spectacular one, as you will have seen from the photographs. But it's just the sense of being able to cheer your team on. I've been raised, with in inverted commas on a diet of Leinster and Ireland, and clearly not in the same league, not least because we're completely amateur, and you're talking about a professional setup, but to be able to sit amongst the fans and to be able to cheer your team on, and actually we play an awesome brand of rugby in Gib Rugby. To be able to do that is heavenly for fans. And I think the thing I take most about game days is jumping on the bus or walking up towards the stadium, and you see all these people you didn't even realize like rugby, just wearing the national team shirts or their tops, or just the merchandise. Just seeing people around town wearing a Gibraltar rugby top, that for me, that is
priceless.
It is priceless.
It is. Yeah, so no, I fully get that. I know Keego was going to talk about the sort of pre-COVID stuff and the sort of things we did on developing the team on and off the field. But for me, it's almost like there's that extraordinary sense of family rugby. Everything we talk about in the world about the glorious rugby family, because you've got like a club, but at a bloody national level. Because there's so few of you per se that you're all involved at all levels, and very much hands-on. So you've got that sort of larger club type feel, but that's a national team. How I don't genuinely think we're going to come across anywhere else, Chad, where you get that. Does that give you better buy-in from people on their own?
I think the access to the national team, certainly, yeah, that's obviously the pinnacle. That's where everybody wants to be involved with. That helps us. We've got a fantastic volunteer base as well that chip in, and they always help with different events, different functions, and across all levels of the union. And then that spills down into the clubs as well. So the clubs are really developing as clubs. Going back to what you said, I think if you look at a lot of the small nations that are out there, and I'd even go so far as to say maybe like Malta and Cyprus, Bermuda, they've all got their sort of club structures in place where they've got 3, 4, 5 clubs competing in league. But then they'll also have a lot of players that they might call upon that have sort of had a more wider rugby background from, say, the UK or from schooling or wherever they've gone to. And we're not too dissimilar. A lot of our kids all of our kids go off to university in the UK or into the US, but they'll go overseas and then they'll develop as rugby players at university, and then hopefully come back slightly improved.
Brilliant. Yeah. Keego. That's excellent.
Yeah, no, I was just going to jump in and say, kind of when you start seeing merchandise around, it shows you that the job you guys are doing is spreading awareness of what you're doing, which is part of, whether it's my local club or your team. That's part of the job. Part of the game is to get awareness out to people, which is great. But what I was going to talk to you guys or ask you guys about was, like, we're all stuck in the middle of this COVID thing. Without wishing to talk it down too much, but it's very difficult to keep a rugby operation going from a business end of things to keeping your team motivated, maybe trying to improve a few skills or stop skills lessening while we're all sitting watching Netflix. How have you guys navigated the early COVID times with the lockdowns and all that sort of stuff, or how has it affected you?
So just from the business perspective first, and I'll let Dave answer on the player side. We've met with all our sponsors and our partners. They've been very supportive, and obviously it's strange, right? Because we're sponsored by a variety of different businesses. So we've got some insurers that are sponsoring us now. They've not had many claims. They've had no claims for three months. We've got DHL and everybody's online shopping, but then we've got other businesses that it's just challenging, and I think this whole thing has just totally changed the direction of the way we do things in life and in general, and the impact's obviously there. And if it's not there now, we believe it will be there still in 12 months' time. And for us, it's about staying in touch with our partners and our sponsors. They're the ones that have helped us on this journey get to where we are. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing. So they're very important to us. So we've managed that, and we're fortunate that all our partners are sticking with us for the next season.
Excellent.
And as a coach, how are you, Dave? How are you keeping? Obviously, motivation isn't an issue, but kind of look, we're all humans. We all get stuck into Ozark or something, and kind of we forget to do our miles. How are you navigating that?
It's easy because the biggest thing that COVID has done, I think, for Gibraltar, it's got everybody outside and exploring Gibraltar. Like, I've never climbed a rock so many times in all my life. I didn't think I'd get up there in the first place. I've been up there too many times, I think. So everybody is. And so we to have too much time on it. The downside to it was even the guys that were totally locked down in Spain. They could barely leave their house. So those guys have sort of not come back in great shape. It's to be expected. So we're doing stuff naturally, and we're fortunate where we can train with with bigger numbers, and the guys have come back in incredible shape. So I think COVID has been a bit of a blessing in disguise to us in terms of fitness for the guys, because we haven't had to say to them, go out running, go out doing fitness, go out and do this. They've done it with themselves. So I think that's been a really big positive for us.
And of course, you end up looking like a Barbary Macaque as well. There's that's a
yeah. If you got them, mate, you got to mix it with them.
Have your gaffs not opened yet, mate?
No, well they have, mate. I go and get it shaped up now, mate. I've shaved it once, and I go and get it all shaved out, a bit like Keego. I'm sure he gets his shaped up.
Okay.
Nobody wants to know what's under here. That's why the government demands it keeps growing. So we don't. It could be anything under here.
How do you keep the guys purely amateur? So everybody's got jobs. If you look at sort of the grassroots and then come on the community level sort of first into your 4 clubs, it's still wherever you are in the world, Dave. It's a busy old existence. How do you manage to get the guys both mentally and physically prepared during the week, especially when when the season's on? There's 4 teams. They do have some games they're on. We'll come on to the national bit in a second with Chad. But how do you physically and mentally get them prepared? What I go back again. It's not disrespectful at all. It's actually totally respectful. It's almost like a national club thing. How do you manage to do that in an innovative way and keep them going? Because you've been there a while.
The thing is, I think it's just the way that we train. We have to train at an even higher intensity than what we would play at. Exactly. So the biggest thing that we do is that we train at a really high intensity. So our sessions are only sort of 45 minutes, an hour long. But what we try to do is that the biggest thing for us is that we want players to train with the clubs, because the clubs is the first and foremost most important thing for them, because that's where they're going to play most of their rugby, and they're actually the majority of the team, or all of the teams in Gib base their games around their national team players. So what we've got to do is ensure that those national team players are A, playing to a higher standard, but B, ensuring that their levels are at a high standard. So what they don't, because of the level here in Gib is that there's quite a big gap between national team and club level, is that what we don't want is these national team players just thinking, oh well, I've just got to go through the motions. Well, what we actually do is we need them to be playing at the highest level to raise the standard of our local league. And I think over the last 2 years, we've seen the standard raise incredibly. We've seen this year at the stadium, we've seen some fantastic games. And it was a game that I refereed, which is the Buccaneers versus the Stormers. And the stand, I think there must have been over 100 people chatting in the crowd, way more than that. And the standard of the game and actually being out in the middle refereeing, the intensity and everything was just fantastic. And that's the sort of standards that we want to set here in Gib. So yeah, it's we do put a lot of pressure on the players to make sure that they're training and they're playing and they're because for us, we want to play teams like Sweden, Malta that are up there to really put us on the rugby map. In order to do that, the players have got to be training with their club. So yeah, we train at a high intensity when we do get the guys.
Excellent, Rich. From your perspective, because you're almost like an organisation, you're almost like the HR business partner, because you sit at the side, there's a dotted line, and you've worked at a strategic level, and you see everything, which I think is fab. So, what Dave's talking about, where do you see that intensity within the sort of the 4 club teams, if you like, within Gib? How do you find that in comparison to maybe other club sides that you've seen elsewhere around the globe, given your extensive knowledge, mate?
I think given that they're all amateurs, I think that actually is the biggest fillip that they have, because they're there because they want to be. It's not a job. Yeah. They're there because they want to be. They're self-motivated anyway, and of course there is this, which is something that these guys have been working in fostering over the last 2-3 years, and that is creating the player pathway. So you need to look at these things holistically. So if you're seeing that the national, I would have loved to have played rugby for Gibraltar. I've never played rugby in my life, but that's another story. But to be able to represent your country surely should be the most important thing or accolade that a player will want to achieve. So they've got that motivation. But when to that you add a successful national team, and I'm not saying that we play we play very, very few games, sadly, but we are, despite Gibraltar's size, we are competing and are extremely competitive with sides that should be beating us.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I've already mentioned Sweden. There have been other results over the last few years where you think, bloody hell, Gibraltar, where do they come from? But it's the motivation. That's what I put it down to. So this desire to achieve, this desire to, I think that's what keeps them going. And you can see it palpably. I mean, and I'm sure we'll talk about grassroots in a little while, but the perfect example of this is that our mini and youth section has grown tenfold over the last couple of years. I think we're averaging over, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think we're averaging over 200 kids. Whereas at one stage, we were lucky to get 20. So, that for me, because I think one of the things that we haven't mentioned in that is that the ethos in the GRFU is very similar to the Ireland, New Zealand ethos, and that is that everything's geared towards the national team. So it's all about homegrown. So, and the homegrown starts with the kids on a Saturday morning up at the stadium and progresses. So when they see that there is an end game here, that I may be able to wear that red and white hooped shirt with a Gibraltar crest on it at one day, you think that I've got a goal to aim for. And when on top of that, as I just said, the national team is successful and or definitely competitive, then awesome. Yeah, and that is, I think, is the golden thread between the little toddlers who go on a Saturday morning to when the national team plays.
Are they on the grassroots bit then? Are they all aligned to the 4 clubs, lads? Is that the way that you've got it? How's it structured from the grassroots? What is the aspirational level? From all the way up to. And oh, by the way, Rich, you say you haven't played rugby yet. If there's a vets team, man, I heard the cat slipped in before there's a vets team. So let's have none of this. When I said everybody's hands on, it means that you pick up a ball and you're hands on. But no, all seriousness. Chev, how do you structure that? Are they aligned to the clubs? How do you fund them? How does all that work?
Yeah, they are. It's you've probably seen a thing called X Rugby. We call it Max Rugby, where we have maximum sided games. And Dave has devised competition structures for our juniors, where it might be 5, 6, 7, 8 a side. It's basically where the kids, they got more chance of getting their hands on the ball, they've got more chance of playing rugby, and they play that within the club structures. So you'll have like Buccaneers under 8s, Stormers under 10s, and they'll play that. We also run a sort of a selection program for the kids, so the kids get a chance to compete against incoming tours or whoever's coming into Gibraltar to play. And they also organise games over in Spain and compete over in Spain as juniors. So they've got 3 avenues for competition at the moment: is the domestic Max Rugby, incoming tours, and over the border in Andalusia, where they arrange friendly games and festivals and take part in that.
And how's all that funded, mate? Is that done through the GRFU itself, or
yeah? So the GRFU, we run the competition structure. So we manage the competitions. We got our own referee society as well. So the referee society responsible for appointing referees. They take on. We actually have 3 officials in our senior league game. So we do run ARs. as opposed to touch judges. With everything, it's sometimes we do struggle for numbers there to get the consistency, but we do try to run with 3 officials. It's the union really structures it, and then you have sort of a separate junior and youth section where they then run the clubs and the the player development through coaching that sort of sits under Dave. Dave is the GRFU technical director as well as a national team coach. So he puts in place CPD for coaches. He's a coach. We run World Rugby Level 1. We've got to do safeguarding courses, first aid courses, and then when you've got the World Rugby first aid and safeguarding, you then get your Level 1 GIB coaching badge, as it were, and that's sort of how we develop our coaches then. And normally it's predominantly parents and also some senior players that drop down and help, and obviously some from the vet section that will go down and help out as well and lend a hand on a Saturday morning.
Yeah, superb. Again, how long have I sort of known, most of you, and I didn't know that that Dave, amongst other things, refs as well. Why wouldn't he? I just never thought. It's just another bloody thing you have to as well. Just even more presses me now. And referee society, and it is all self-contained. I know. Keego said to me before, wanted to speak to you all about where you play. I think Keego, I'll let you do that. About where players now come from, home and abroad, and how that ties in from grassroots to the national level. But sorry, just a quick one there. Steve Baldwin. Steve, you're welcome to tonight's show. How do you invite friends? And what you do is you can just on the live link on your phone or your machine, you can just share it and just send it to your friends, or you can click that link that I've sent on just there as well. Just copy and paste that and send it to your friends, or you can just share it or invite somebody to join the show. But it does stay on after the live show as well, mate, and you can watch it that way as well. Sorry, lads. Sorry. Keego. Thanks, Chad. Keego.
No, absolutely. Just following on from that, it's great. The big thing at Grassroots that we love to hear is the mini rugby increasing in terms of the amount of screaming little children running after an oval ball. It's fantastic. It's great to hear that's part of the awareness that it's not just people walking around town in a jersey. It's people showing up on a Sunday or whatever day it is. It's part of what we love to see. But my main question, as Joe was alluding to there, I have no idea how it would work. How do you bring in a player, or how do you find a player? Are there other sports that you I'm going to phrase this badly, poach people from, or how does it work? Do you recognize someone and try and steal them, or how does it work for you?
Shall I take this one, Dave?
Yeah, go on.
So at junior level, it's normally it's pitch up. Where's the rugby club? And you come along, and your kid wants to join, and then he'll get put into a club. At that level, at senior level, we sort of have we run a recruitment draft, if you like, where clubs are free to go out and bring in players that haven't previously been registered to a club. So we've got a set of bylaws around recruitment and signing on senior players, and it's really for the clubs to go out and generate interest in the sport and to recruit players, but it's done within a set of parameters. So obviously, if you've got a professional rugby player that's 35 years old, retired to Gibraltar, he wouldn't necessarily be able to sign for that club straight away. He'd go into a draft process, and where the ability is then assessed, and we ensure that we've got what we call tier 1 players. And they're equally balanced across the 4 clubs, and that makes it competitive. All 4 clubs have won the league. I think all 4 clubs have won the cup as well over the last 10 years. And being a small place, it's just managing the ability, which we do. They're all similar to, I guess, Ireland and New Zealand, but on an amateur basis. They're all centrally contracted, if you like. and it's then for the clubs to really try and grow participation, and it's for the clubs to go out there and recruit. You know, we've got one of the clubs that might be closer linked to the Royal Gibraltar Police. We might have a club that's linked to the couple of the gaming firms. You know, it's really a mixed bag. The only thing that's fair to say is that you've got a mixture of all people in all clubs. It's not one club that's just purely expats. It's a pure mixture across the whole spectrum of what Gibraltar is, and that's really, you know, for us, that's brilliant. It really drives the competition amongst the clubs, and so yeah, that's how we sort of handle that.
What about the national team? And I know this is meant to be about, and it is about sort of grassroots and community rugby around the globe. But I go back to the fact that I think it's one of those. I think we're going to find this, Keego, a little bit more. You've got you've got countries like yourselves who it's almost like an international club. Because everything is so, you know, there's no separated thing like for England or for Ireland, for example. It's pretty separate. The clubs are very much separate, really, from the schools, the sub academies, then into the 4 provincial sides, etc., etc. Where yours isn't. So for me, a lot of the reason why I'm sort of covering from, if you like, grassroots to the national team level is because it's all inextricably linked for me. So therefore, that leads on to not all of your national team players are homegrown, Dave, are they? Some are abroad. How do you manage that about where they play and how they qualify and how they train and when you get them? Because that's going to lead on to, I know, going to steal Keego's Sunday. Keego's next question is about your test games and the tours and all stuff like that. So that links in for me.
Well, first and foremost, all the players have to be qualified to play for Gibraltar. So under the World Rugby regulations. So everything that we do, we have to make sure that all the players are qualified to play. And you know, what it comes down to is if it's by birth, qualified through residency, grandparents, that, you know, those are the sort of the 3 main things. But what we do is we're always looking for Gibraltarians that play rugby, not just to play for the national team, but to be involved and connected with Gibraltar Rugby. So, you know, we're always getting these new players, these new people that come onto the scene. And one of the biggest successes in finding new players was when we played Jamaica under 23s. It was the first time that we had put out an under 23s, and we had just put a message out on Facebook, and the media guys that Richard sort of looks after. We had all these people that were coming out of the woodwork just saying, you know, my grandmother's Gibraltarian, you know, I want to play and stuff. So what we ended up doing was bringing all these guys over, and we've seen some incredible talent that has come out of that under 23s that's really exciting for the future, which now puts pressure on our national team players. So yeah, you know, we follow the World Rugby regulations in terms of qualification because, you know, we are an international team. So that's really important for us to make sure that happens. But yeah, we get a lot of people via social media as well saying, you know, I've got a Gibraltarian grandmother, or, you know, I left when I was 4 or 5. I've been playing rugby in the UK, you know, how do I play for the national team and stuff? So, you know, we're forever getting these requests, which is amazing, because now I think when I first started, and Chad, correct me if I'm wrong, we had a squad of around sort of 30 plus guys, but now we can almost select from, and I become, you know, we've got 60 plus guys that are in our pathway from the age of 17 through to you know, the national team captain that's now at 35. So it's pretty amazing the people that we get, and the standard as well.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing is, guys, is that we've got a sort of team that's predominantly Gibraltarian born. Yeah. A lot of those guys are in the UK at university, and then it's the residency of the 3 or 4 guys that have been based in Gibraltar 5 or 6 years now that make up the team. So it's sort of, it's not bringing in a load of expats from overseas to come in. Sort of, they're already in Gibraltar, living, working, and Gibraltar's their home. And then it's the Gibraltarian students that are over in the UK at the moment that then would make up the rest. I mean, it's quite a young team that we've got, bar one or two of that are still there.
Are you, just as a side, Chad, are you a magistrate?
No.
Right. I'm just saying that because, you know, you find somebody good who's there 5 or 6 years working for one of the big gaming companies or big insurance companies, just take the visa or the passport away. You know, done something wrong. Ways and means that, you know, I'd be keeping the people there for that. Not that you need to do that, actually. Dave Barley, I don't think Dave Barley's ever going to leave.
Can I just say, Joe, we're live. You should have said that in a private message. We're live now. So, yeah, we can't edit that out.
It's giving people ideas. We actually didn't realise just how big some of the industries are. The sort of technology industries and the distributed ledger sort of technology and the gaming systems and the insurance across there. Actually, an awful lot goes on. It is a hub for an awful lot of things. In all seriousness, it's I was just seeing that Jim Harris. Jim, you're welcome to the show. Saying it's a top setup throughout, and now iconic stadium and facilities. Dave Topham brings up an interesting point just on the back of what Chad and Dave were saying there. Managers, we had the USA show last week, somewhat of the draft system to ensure good equal quality rugby, then looking at the next development phase as well. It's a very good point. Was it based on that originally? Is that why you did it, or is it just something that fits for Gibraltar?
We've been doing it for 10 years now. We take the best 20 players and ensure there's 3 or 4 in each club, and then the clubs crack on and build their own teams.
Excellent.
Sorry to jump in. That's what I love when you were talking about how the cup winners and the league winners, everyone of your teams has won it. That shows it's a great organization. It's not as much as it is my team at the moment over here, or our team. It's a bit unfair in terms of resources behind them compared to an organization, whereas you're organizing everything so that it's an equal playing field and everyone can express themselves. That's massively important, because if I'm going to a local game and I want to play, I want to see my team perform. I want to see my team in the business end of any season, and you've been able to do that. It's so important when you're working with these kind of teams. Really, really important to hear. I was going to ask a very serious question, because when I get on the bus and I go to the RDS to watch Leinster, there's a whole build up to the game. Obviously, the game itself, and there's the after. It's almost a parade kind of thing. But so when Joe and I go over to visit you guys, what do we expect on game day? How does it run? Because it starts here when you get on the bus and you get closer to the stadium, the volume increases, stupid mascots are running around. How does it work with you guys? Do you have minis at halftime and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, Richard might be able to give you a bit more of a fan's perspective. We've been flat out on match days, but yeah, we ensure we involve every club and section if we can within a big national day. We reckon we had about 1,800 spectators at one of our games. We can fill a stadium quite convincingly and easily, and they're normally there for the majority of the day. Normally starts with mini and youth exhibition of some sorts. We invite clubs over from the UK or from Spain to participate with our kids. We can get the maybe the women's section or the vet section to be involved, and then obviously we run the big day, the big national team event, and that's sort of like we said, it's sort of the pinnacle, but everybody's involved in some form, whether they're volunteering, supporting, or having just played. And I think the lead up to it's quite serious. We have the mascots, we have the other sort of things that would be associated with a big event. Lots of music. The stadium caters quite well for on the F&B side, so there's you don't have to queue too long to get a beer. So it's an enjoyable day out for everyone. So yeah, it's a great environment, and I think from a fan's perspective, leading up to it, the stadiums that you're open now, where we used to play at Victoria, you have to catch a bus up there, or you can walk it, but it's probably more comfortable. And everybody's on the bus in the red and white hooped, getting excited about the day's events.
Rich?
Yeah, I'll just add to that for Keego's benefit. I'm just going to go back a few years, probably about 7 or 8 years. I think we played Cyprus, I think it was, one of the first games at the Victoria Stadium, which is where our football team, the national team, plays. And I went there with the wife to watch the match. Obviously very excited, but thinking, I mean, how many people are really going to turn up to watch a rugby game in Gibraltar? And when I got there, and when I was arriving there, and I saw all these shirts, and I saw all these people, and I thought, fuck. It was packed to the bloody rafters. And, that just gave us a huge, warm feeling. Because, and I alluded to it earlier, when you're used to going to large stadia to watch Euro finals or to watch Six Nations or watch autumn internationals, you don't expect to have that replicated in Gibraltar, clearly, but you at least want to see that there is excitement for the game. And well, that was only step one in what the experience is nowadays, which is that there is a purpose-built stadium. There are rugby fans in droves going up in buses, rugby fans around, kids, all age groups, and you know what the rugby family is like. And it's just a wonderful experience. It's a wonderful experience in a wonderful place because, the stadium is brand spanking new. The views are awesome. And it's just, I think that the sense of home is probably the best thing, because whereas before we were tenants in somebody else's home, this is our home, and that makes a world of difference, because you can associate yourself with a place, whereas previously, as I said, we were just we had to play Sweden a home match in Vila Moura in Portugal, but because we didn't have a stadium here in Gib, but now we can. So it's a really, really good experience. And as the lads have said, there's music and beer flowing freely and food. And if there's one thing Gibraltarians do, it's have fun, and we know how to do it. So it's a good day. It really is.
Those that's fab. Those state-of-the-art stadium, the state-of-the-art stadium, but the facilities you've got, it is great to have. I mean, I use, as you all know, this background picture is of the stadium, and I use that for a lot of our different shows around the globe. People often ask where it is, so I tell them. So it's raising awareness, but it's just bloody stunning. And then the view in the top corner of the image that I used for tonight's show poster. It's fab, but you've got that facility there. But you're even pre-COVID. I know that Keego's going to touch on talk about the future and stuff, but the facilities that you've got, what do you use them for? Do the local clubs play on there? By the way, the 4 local clubs in the league, do they play on there? Or are they just for the touring teams and for the national team to play in? And how is that all utilised to the best ability? And what can you use it for, Chad?
It's actually, although it's it's clearly the home of rugby, it's also the home of cricket, home of squash. There's a multi-sports stadium there for badminton, gymnastics, indoor hockey. I think we've got 6 international squash courts. We've got indoor nets. We've got dormitories there, so we've got 60 beds. We've got a function room, rugby clubhouse, cricket pavilion, and as Richard said, fantastic views. So the facilities for the whole community, and it's sort of the idea behind it is that it's split between both community and commercial use. So if 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, the amateurs that are working in their day jobs won't be using a facility. That's when it would be, incoming tours and they want to use it. Professional sports teams may want to rent it, hire it. We've also got a sort of elite level gym and a health gym on site as well, with changing facilities. Actually, we've got a darts room as well with 12 ockies, I think. So there's plenty of entertainment there. And the idea really is to cater for the local community across a number of sports that previously didn't necessarily have homes or facilities. It's a small place, Gibraltar. We were limited, and to be fair, the local government here have really delivered on their sort of commitments to the sporting world in Gibraltar, in catering for and allowing Gibraltarians to really try and reach their potential, and by creating this facility, and there's a few more facilities in Gibraltar that were developed for the island game, is there for young Gibraltarians to really grasp and maximize their potential, which is fantastic.
Awesome, brilliant. I didn't realise there was so much in there, and you obviously knew there was a complex, but I didn't realise you had absolutely so much there. It just lends itself almost well to having an HSBC Sevens tournament. Just an idea. If you're watching World Rugby, of course you're watching. We always watch the show, so just an idea. We'd all like to go to Gib for a Sevens competition, wouldn't we? We'll all check up with Rich and Jim. That'll be great. So,
We've got one in the planning stages. Just obviously COVID has thrown a spanner in the works on a lot of things at the moment. So it's the concept, and it's being developed at the moment, and hopefully we'll be able to announce something soon on that.
Cool. Thanks, buddy. Keego.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about, life after COVID. It seems like everything is organized so well. It's kind of answered my question. It's kind of Dave's going to keep kicking his team around until they get fit and stay fit, and it's going to remain organized. But is there anything you want to see in general terms? Because, once, the game starts again, for us over here, we're getting very close to our Interpro games starting again, and there's a thoughts of people being allowed back into stadiums in kind of November time here. How do you see that working, getting people back in or spectators back in, going forward with COVID? Is there anything you're going to be doing specifically, or is it just follow advice to the letter?
Well, Dave and I both sit on our COVID committee with two others, and we've been doing a lot of work with our local authority here in keeping, making sure that we're within the local guidance of what the government puts out. And they've had a number of phases to what they call Unlock the Rock, which is sort of a return, I guess, to normality, or some sort of normality. And we've sort of followed that with our own policies that have also mimicked and followed World Rugby's guidelines that I think the WHO have approved and signed off on. So we're marrying up our sort of return to rugby with the Unlock the Rock policy that's coming out. And the stumbling block for us really is even when the government's gone through their phases where there's sort of a return to normality, is actually then entering into a contact sport, which we're very aware of is with rugby. There's a few more things for us to consider. So from a playing perspective, we're looking at how everything's sanitized. All the at the moment all training's still done with smallish groups and social distancing, and we're hoping to gradually come out of that end of August, beginning of September, so that our leagues really don't start until the beginning of October, mainly because of other events that go on in Gibraltar, temperatures, and also tail end of the cricket season as well. So we just marry on into the beginning of October. So that's when we're looking to hopefully have our competition structures back on track. Then it's a case of, like you said, how do you then manage the spectators, which I think is a big point to this and a big discussion. We played our last two rounds in February or March, Dave, I think it was, behind closed doors. And I think we might be starting behind closed doors as well, just to gradually ease into it. So that's sort of all being looked at now in August for a September, October start.
Brilliant. And what's the aspirations sort of longer term? I know that, in fact, Kevin Rab's here from who runs Rugby Redefined, amongst a whole plethora of other things in the Southern Hemisphere, friend of the global rugby community, has asked the question, touch on application to Rugby Europe progressing from Rabs at the bottom of the world. Yeah, I think it'd be interesting for because it beggars belief, genuinely, all that you achieve as an amateur union from grassroots all the way through. But can you touch on sort of, your aspirations and where you see things going post COVID with because you're not part of World Rugby per se?
Yeah, look, we bit of a short history, but it's gone over a long period now. We originally applied in 2010, and we've been jumping through a few hoops to try and get to where we are, which unfortunately is not very far. As you said, we're not members of Rugby Europe yet. There's been a few changes in bylaws over the period that's impacted us, and we've still got a good relationship with World Rugby and Rugby Europe. We talk to them frequently. They are aware of the situation we're in, and we're hoping to be included in the near future in Rugby Europe competition.
Well, I think it's the fact that you've built, or the government's built all this, and the sport. I've seen over the last sort of 4 years or so how you're progressing so well, and the numbers and the growth from the grassroots and community level can only, improve everything as it's going forward. Beating the likes of Sweden, albeit in a different location at your home, it would have been even sweeter. But from that grassroots point, Rich, where would you like to see Gibraltar Rugby in the next 2 to 5 years? From mixing it as a fan, but also sort of another level.
Well, the where is very simple. The where is forming part of the World Rugby family. Officially forming part. Obviously, with our regional association, which is Rugby Europe. So that's the simple answer for that one. In terms of where I'd like to see us, and I think we would see us, is playing regular competitive rugby at the national team level, because it's, despite the fact that we still compete very well, and of course competition can only enhance the experience of the players. As Dave mentioned a little while ago, the under-23s are an extremely exciting prospect moving forwards, not least because they put pressure on the national team guys, but also because you see the enthusiasm, you see the way they play, and let's bear in mind this was their first game. Oh, and there's a couple of lads from Bective Rangers in there, by the way.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. So, where I see the game progressing here in Gibraltar is that I think that it's, and a lot of it comes down to having the home that I mentioned. Because it is pretty totemic. So now you know where you're going to go to play rugby. And I know that sounds silly, but to be able to have a place where you're going to go to play rugby is important. And I think it's going to create such a groundswell of momentum, because let's not forget that these 200 odd kids will grow, become older, join the teams, become eligible to play for the national team, and there will come a time, and I think, where there's going to be a situation where the dam will burst, and the dam can only burst into a proper competitive scenario. And that is my aspiration as a fan and also a member of the GRFU. And I think it's achievable. I know that we're not there yet, but slowly but surely.
Good man. Excellent. I think it's great aspiration to have. I think the final thing for me, from my perspective, and Keego's going to finish the show off, is Dave, is do you see any more teams being formed? Could you form more teams for your league? And where would, because that seems, with the growth that, I'm looking at the outside in, and for me, you see the growth coming from the kids. At some point, you're going to maybe have 5 or 6, 7 teams. That just seems inevitable as an outsider. Where do you want to see things? Because I know you're not going anywhere. I jokingly said before about him, I'd check your passport if I were you, brother, this tonight, because they're not letting you go, because you have achieved a lot. Where do you see, from the national head coach, technical director, working with kids, where would you like to see in the next 2 to 5 years? And obviously,
they're actually quite lucky, mate, because my passport's actually run out at the minute, so I'm not going anywhere.
There you go.
I've got an ID card to get me through the border, and that's as far as it goes, mate. But it won't get me much further. No, look, me and Chad sit down and have regular chats about where we see it going. For us, and Richard is heavily involved in these conversations as well. We want to be a union now, whereas you sort of just you spoke about that we were a well-organised club that play international rugby. Well, we're actually looking, and we are becoming very, very quickly a union body, so our own sporting body. But what we then need to do is the clubs underneath, we need to support them for them to then become stronger, for them to be standalone. Because at the minute, we heavily support those clubs. We own the clubs first and foremost, but we support them financially and that sort of thing. So that's one of the areas. That the biggest area for us is the minion youth. I think that's one of the most important. The national team will always be the national team, and there will always be players that will play at that level, or at the national team level, let's say. The biggest thing for us now is that we just have one particular age group at minion youth level. But what we want to try and strive to do is to break that down into the clubs to replicate what the senior teams have. So, for example, Chad's team is the Buccaneers. We now want Buccaneers under 7s, 8s, 9s, 10s, 11s, 12s, right the way through the pathway. It's going to be a lot of work, but at some point we're going to have to take that break to ensure that we are then having clubs within clubs, and we're having that internal competition grow. So the vision is there, and we've kind of we're planning for it. And then at the senior level, there's definitely room for us to grow. It's now getting those kids coming through the system. When they get to 17, they can play senior rugby. People that come to Gibraltar, enticing more local Gibraltarians to play rugby as well, which we're doing an incredible job of, and that's the local clubs that are doing that, So we're growing at a rate of knots, and it's almost too big to control, if that makes sense. It's growing so fast, and that's just a great work of the volunteers in the background, and it's we're growing, and we see where the future is, and we're just on that path to growing it, making sure it's sustainable. That's the key thing for us.
Yeah, superb. I think that takes me full way back down to where it all starts with. It's just grassroots and community. And like I said before, when I described it as almost a national club, I can see exactly where it's going to go. I can look ahead in 5 years and see where you're going to be. And I hope, from an outsider's perspective, I hope that is, as a full member of World Rugby, where your union sits at the top and allows almost the operational and the tactical levels to be able to run themselves. And it might be hard for you to let go a little bit, but that'll be a nice problem to have once you actually get there. I can see it really, really getting there. Until then, I'll leave Keego to finish off, but I just want to thank you guys. It's been I thought I knew a little bit about Gibraltar Rugby. I learned an awful lot more tonight, so I'm really grateful to you. Neil Keegan.
No, absolutely. I love listening. I love, Grassroots is it's quite different here in that it goes through a club system, and then it's another system, and then it's another system. Whereas you guys are building an infrastructure where a kid can go in on a whatever day minis rugby is on, join their local club, and they can roll their way from minis rugby all the way up to the big jersey, and that can be something that is shown to a kid. It's really, really special the way you're organizing it, and everything I've heard is it gets us really excited. Grassroots is kind of it's very community based, but you're bringing this kind of obviously massively well organized community base all the way up to the big jersey, and there won't be many examples of that around the world. So it's really, really fantastic to listen. Cheers for everyone for taking the time, and good to talk to you again, Rich.
Cheers, Keego.
Good drills, guys. Just stay in the studio with us while we sort of close down. Thanks very much again to our 3 stars from Gibraltar Rugby tonight, Chairman Thompson, Technical Director and National Head Coach Dave Barley, and Rich Mifsud as well. Really engaging for everybody, lads, and it won't be the last time you'll be on the show. And Jesus will tell you what, you better put your guards on, because me and Keego are coming at some point.
As soon as he said there was 63 beds in there, we're like, oh, here, lads, we're there.
He's coming next week.
We might just be walking around with pictures of me and on our face. We'll send you an advance notice. But in all seriousness, Chad, Dave, and Rich, thanks very much. We wish you all the best. And it's been fab to hear be part of your journey. We look forward to seeing you again in the future. What else we got going on, Keego? We'll come back to our next show on Wednesday. We've got the Ulster Rugby Roundup show, White Walkers Chat and Crack, with Dave Topping. Not Dave the Wingnut is chatting with Sean Maloney, sports commentator Sean Maloney, Sonia McLaughlin, and Nick Mullins. And then on Thursday, we have got our South African and Springbok Rugby Roundup special. The Reeboker, a ball and board with Andy Daniels from Scrum 5 Rugby, is chatting with former Exeter Chief star Neil Clark and RFU's referee and TMO David Rose on mental health and sports special. So 2 more shows this week, and then a whole pile of stuff next Monday. We have got our first pilot episode of the Welsh Rugby Roundup show, The Dragon's Balls, with Rhiannon Noel Phillips and Brandon Smith, and a host of people on there as well. So, and finally, please go to the YouTube channel, which is just set up. We haven't been promoting them much, but it goes through there. There's a playlist for each one of the different shows, and this show will be on this model under Gibraltar Rugby. We'll create its own playlist for them, and anything we can do to help them in the future. Keego, when are we back on again?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I knew it. And so I was trying to get my calendar up. I believe we're back on the 17th. Is that correct?
Indeed.
Does that line up with your calendar?
Yeah,
yes.
That sounds about right. Just before the Pro 14 starts again. And there's a whole pile of things going to be happening for the Pro 14 with goggle box style shows and live chats. And I've even in between then I've got to teach you how to produce a show so I can have a night off, and you've got a rep from Ulster, Munster, Leinster and Connacht and all sorts of different things happening. But the next show, we are moving from the beautiful, beautiful place that is Gibraltar, and we're going to where next?
Hang on. I have my list here. Hang on.
It won't be like you now, I tell you.
This is live TV, folks.
Live TV.
Joe is doing this to me on purpose.
We are going on the 17th from Gibraltar. We move around the globe to the Mediterranean. I'll give you a clue. There we go. We're going to Greece for our next stop. And there was people taking the mickey out of you before. Very unfair, Keego, on your checkered shirt there. But we've both got a t-shirt to wear for the next, which have been sent through to us by the 2 girls in Greece. So we will be having a look at Grassroots and Community Rugby. Part 4 is Greece, I believe, is next. So listen, the fact that we've made contact last week and we're now tied in with Kanaloa, Hawaii, the latest team to join the MLR. It's got nothing to do with the fact that Gibraltar, Greece, okay, Sea Point we're going to start with, then London Irish, then Gibraltar, then Greece, then all these other places we're going to go physically visit. It's because we can. So if you want us to come and visit you, about your Grassroots Rugby, anywhere in the hill, does Tahiti play rugby? It needs to. We'll be there soon. Until then, Chad Thompson, Dave Barley, Rich Mifsud, from Keego himself, and myself, Big Joe Chef. Until next time, we'll see you all.
See you guys.
Lads.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.